In a quiet suburban neighborhood, two teenage friends stumbled upon a chilling mystery that would haunt them for years to come. It was a crisp autumn evening when 15-year-old Jake and his best friend, Mike, decided to explore an abandoned block of houses slated for demolition. The site was a maze of decay, with boarded-up windows and sealed doors. Warning signs plastered the perimeter, but the allure of adventure was too strong to resist. As they crept through the abandoned block, Jake and Mike's eyes were drawn to a single window on the top floor of one house. Unlike the others, this window wasn't completely sealed, offering a tantalizing glimpse into the forgotten world within. Excited by their discovery, the boys snapped a quick photo with Jake's digital camera before heading home, unaware of the chilling revelation that awaited them. As they scrolled through their photos later that night, their blood ran cold. There, in the window they had photographed, stood a woman. Her skin was pale as death, her hair as black as night, cascading down her shoulders. She wore a brown raincoat, and her eyes held an indescribable sadness. Panic set in as the boys realized they hadn't seen anyone in the house when they took the picture. How could this be possible? The entire block was supposed to be empty, sealed tight against intruders. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, Jake and Mike returned to the demolition site the next day. Their hearts pounded as they approached the house, half expecting to see the ghostly woman watching them from the window. But as they investigated, their confusion only grew. Every window, including the one where they had seen the woman, was tightly boarded up. There was no way anyone could have been inside. As Jake and Mike stood there, staring at the impossible scene before them, a chill ran down their spines. They had captured something that defied explanation. A ghostly remnant of a tragedy, long forgotten. Preserved in the decaying walls of a house, about to be erased from existence. To this day, Jake and Mike are haunted by the image of the sad woman in the window. Was she a spirit trapped in time, or something even more sinister? As the wrecking balls came to claim the old neighborhood, they couldn't help but wonder, what other secrets were buried beneath the rubble? In a quiet suburban neighborhood of Tokyo, a chilling tale unfolded that would haunt its residents for years to come. Our story centers around Hiro, a 25-year-old man whose past held a dark secret. Years ago, when Hiro was just 19, he became the unwitting target of an obsessive admirer. Mei, a 28-year-old woman who lived nearby, developed an unhealthy fixation on the young man. At first, her attention seemed harmless, frequent messages checking on his well-being. But soon, the situation took a sinister turn. Mei's messages became increasingly invasive and unsettling. She would comment on Hiro's daily activities with uncanny accuracy, as if she were constantly watching him. Unnerved, Hiro retreated from social media and avoided using his phone. One fateful day, Hiro returned home to find Mei there, claiming she was his new caretaker, while his mother was away on business. Hesitant, but unable to verify her story, Hiro reluctantly agreed to stay with her. What followed was a nightmare. Mei subjected Hiro to bizarre and frightening games, blurring the lines between reality and her twisted fantasy. She would blindfold him for hours, leaving him in silent dark rooms, playing out scenarios where they were married. 5 days into his captivity, Hiro caught a glimpse of a news report about his own disappearance. Before he could react, Mei appeared, switching off the TV. In a moment of desperation, Hiro managed to cry out for help through an open window. His salvation came in the form of a passing couple who heard his pleas and alerted the authorities. When the police arrived, they found Hiro bound and blindfolded in Mei's bedroom. The ordeal left deep scars on Hiro's psyche. He moved abroad shortly after, hoping to escape the memories of his harrowing experience. But even years later, the mere mention of Mei's name was enough to send shivers down his spine. This tale serves as a chilling reminder that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are those who walk among us, wearing a human face. In the heart of a bustling metropolis, a tale of nocturnal terror unfolded that would forever change one man's perception of the night. Our story revolves around Alex, a night owl who found solace in the quiet streets of his city after dark. For years, Alex had roamed the urban landscape under the cover of night, feeling invincible in the shadows. But on one fateful evening, his sense of security was shattered by an encounter that defied explanation. It was a crisp Wednesday night, the city unusually still. Alex found himself near a deserted park, far from the safety of his apartment. As he turned down a dimly lit side street, he noticed a peculiar figure in the distance. The silhouette of a man appeared, moving in an unsettling dance-like motion. With each step, the stranger nodded forward, his movements a grotesque parody of grace. Unnerved, Alex moved closer to the road, hoping to give the man a wide berth. As the distance between them closed, Alex could make out the man's features. Tall and gaunt, dressed in an antiquated suit, the stranger's face was a mask of madness. His eyes, wide and wild, stared skyward, while his mouth was stretched into an impossibly wide grin. Alarmed, Alex crossed the street, only to find the man had instantly mirrored his position. In a blink, the stranger had crossed the road, now crouched and facing Alex with that same manic smile. Frozen in fear, Alex watched as the man began to approach, taking exaggerated, cartoonish steps. When he finally found his voice, Alex's attempt at a commanding tone came out as a frightened whimper. The stranger paused, then slowly turned and dance-walked away. Relief washed over Alex, but it was short-lived. To his horror, the man suddenly turned and began sprinting back towards him. Panic propelled Alex forward. He ran until he reached a better-lit street, constantly looking over his shoulder, expecting to see that terrifying grin. But the stranger had vanished, as mysteriously as he had appeared. 4 months after, Alex abandoned his nightly walks, haunted by the memory of the smiling man's face, a visage, not of intoxication, but of pure, unadulterated insanity. In those few minutes, Alex learned that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are those that walk among us, wearing a human face. In the late 1990s, Sarah Thompson worked as a house cleaner in rural New Zealand. She advertised her services through business cards, left at local shops, and relied on word-of-mouth referrals. One crisp autumn morning, Sarah received an unusual call from a woman with a raspy voice, who identified herself as Mrs. Blackwood. The caller requested Sarah's services to clean her isolated farmhouse, offering an exceptionally generous payment. Sarah, intrigued by the offer, agreed despite Mrs. Blackwood's peculiar insistence on not meeting in person. Instead, the mysterious client instructed Sarah to retrieve the house keys from beneath the welcome mat. The winding gravel road seemed to stretch endlessly as Sarah's car crept towards the Blackwood farmhouse. Surrounded by vast, empty fields, the Victorian-style home loomed in the distance. Its weathered facade a stark contrast against the overcast sky. Sarah's unease grew as she approached the front porch. With trembling hands, she lifted the welcome mat, revealing an antique brass key. As she unlocked the heavy wooden door, it creaked open, inviting her into the musty interior. For an hour, Sarah worked diligently, her mind slowly easing as she fell into her usual cleaning routine. Suddenly, a sharp sound shattered the silence, the back door slamming shut. Sarah froze, her heart pounding. She was certain Mrs. Blackwood had said no one would be home. Minutes passed like hours as Sarah stood motionless in the kitchen, straining to hear any further disturbance. Convincing herself it was merely the wind, she hesitantly continued her work, determined to finish the 2 remaining bedrooms. As Sarah entered the master bedroom, her blood ran cold. Scattered across the antique 4-poster bed were dozens of black and white photographs. With mounting horror, she realized every single image was of her. Sarah cleaning various houses, walking down streets, even standing in her own backyard. Some were taken through windows, others from behind fences or bushes. Panic seized Sarah as the implications sank in. She had been watched, stalked, for months without her knowledge. With shaking hands, she grabbed the landline phone and dialed the police, her voice barely above a whisper as she reported her chilling discovery. Sarah fled the house, speeding down the long driveway, until she reached the main road. As police investigated, Mrs. Blackwood maintained her innocence, claiming a break-in. But for Sarah, the damage was done. Within weeks, she and her family relocated to a different part of the country, hoping to escape the lingering fear that followed them like a shadow. on a balmy summer evening in the quiet suburbs of Portland. 28-year-old Olivia Reed was settling into her new apartment. The air was thick with the scent of cardboard boxes and fresh paint, a testament to her recent move. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across her sparsely furnished living room, Olivia decided to check her mailbox one last time before calling it a day. The apartment complex was eerily quiet as she made her way down the hallway, her footsteps echoing off the bare walls. Olivia's phone buzzed in her pocket, her best friend Sarah calling to check in. Grateful for the distraction, Olivia chatted away as she collected her mail and headed back to her unit. Back inside, Olivia absent-mindedly flipped through the stack of envelopes while continuing her conversation. Suddenly, her phone slipped from her grasp, tumbling to the hardwood floor and skittering under the bed. With an exasperated sigh, Olivia lay down on the cool floor, stretching her arm beneath the bed frame. As her fingers brushed against her phone, something else caught her eye. In the dim light filtering under the bed, she saw a shape that didn't belong, the unmistakable silhouette of a person. Olivia's blood ran cold, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure it would give her away. The figure lay motionless, back turned towards her, head tucked to its chest. Fighting every instinct to scream, Olivia forced herself to remain calm. With trembling hands, she retrieved her phone and spoke with a steadiness she didn't feel. "Sorry, Sarah, I dropped my phone. I'm just going to take a quick shower and call you back," Olivia said, her voice barely above a whisper. The bathroom was mere steps away from the bed. Olivia moved with deliberate slowness, terrified that any sudden movement would alert the intruder. Once inside, she quietly locked the door and turned on the shower, masking any sounds of her escape. With shaking limbs, Olivia climbed out of the bathroom window, dropping onto the soft grass below. She sprinted across the street, ducking behind a parked car as she dialed 911 with quivering fingers. The dispatcher instructed her to stay hidden but keep watch on her apartment. Minutes felt like hours as Olivia huddled behind the vehicle, her eyes darting between her open bathroom window and the complex's main entrance. As dusk settled into night, police cruisers arrived with silent lights, their occupants moving with practiced efficiency. Olivia watched, heart in her throat, as officers entered her apartment. Moments later, they emerged, restraining a gaunt, wild-eyed man who offered no resistance. A kind-faced officer approached Olivia, gently explaining the situation. The intruder, a homeless man with apparent mental health issues, had slipped into her apartment while she checked the mail. He had been waiting outside her bathroom door, one of Olivia's own kitchen knives clutched in his hand. As the reality of her narrow escape sank in, Olivia felt a wave of nausea wash over her. The sanctuary of her new home had been violated, leaving behind an invisible scar that would take far longer to heal than any physical wound. The remote wilderness of Alaska's Kenai Peninsula was blanketed in a thick layer of snow, the howling wind whipping through the dense forest surrounding a solitary log cabin. Inside, Mark and Eliza huddled close on a worn leather couch, the flickering light from an old television casting eerie shadows across the room. The cabin, a family heirloom passed down through generations, stood as their only shelter against the raging blizzard outside. Its wooden walls creaked and groaned under the assault of the elements. The front door's broken lock, a constant source of unease. In a makeshift attempt at security, a few cinder blocks had been stacked against the inward opening door. As the clock struck midnight, Eliza suddenly tensed, her grip on Mark's arm tightening. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Mark listened intently, but heard nothing beyond the storm's fury. Dismissing it as the wind playing tricks, he turned his attention back to the late-night show. Minutes later, an unmistakable sound cut through the cabin. The distinct crunch of footsteps in snow, followed by the metallic rattle of tools being moved in the nearby shed. Mark's blood ran cold as he muted the TV, straining to hear more. Eliza urged him to investigate, but self-preservation kept him rooted to the spot. As abruptly as it began, the noise ceased. After a tense silence, Mark cautiously approached the window, flicking on the porch light. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. A trail of fresh footprints in the snow, leading ominously towards the back of the cabin. With trembling hands, Mark pulled back the curtains of the rear window. In the pitch darkness of the backyard, a chilling sight awaited them. A figure stood motionless, facing the cabin. A man clad entirely in black, his face obscured by a sinister vendetta mask that seemed to glow in the darkness. Eliza's scream pierced the night as Mark frantically closed the curtains. He urged her to hide in the bedroom, while he retrieved his grandfather's old hunting rifle from a closet. Barricading the front door with every heavy object he could find, Mark joined Eliza in their makeshift sanctuary. The silence was shattered by a thunderous bang against the front door. Again and again, the intruder attempted to force his way in, each impact sending shockwaves of terror through the couple. After what felt like an eternity, the assault ceased, leaving behind a deafening silence. Mark maintained his vigil through the night, rifle at the ready, as Eliza fell into a fitful sleep. As dawn broke, they hastily packed their belongings, eager to escape their nightmarish ordeal. But as they stepped outside, a chilling discovery awaited them: a fresh set of footprints leading from the front window into the depths of the forest. Though Mark vowed never to return, the cabin's dark secret lingered. His grandparents, on a subsequent visit, found no signs of forced entry or theft. But the memory of that night, and the masked figure in the darkness, would haunt Mark and Eliza for years to come. A reminder of the terrors that lurk in the wilderness, waiting to prey on the unsuspecting. In the quiet suburb of Oakwood, where manicured lawns and picket fences lined the streets, lived 68-year-old Margaret Thornton. Her granddaughter Sarah would visit daily to help with chores and keep her company. One crisp autumn afternoon, Sarah approached the familiar white colonial house. Its red shutters, a stark contrast against the pale siding. As she reached for the doorknob, she was surprised to find it unlocked, unusual for her cautious grandmother. Stepping into the foyer, Sarah called out, "Nana." The house responded with the creaking of floorboards upstairs, and the muffled sounds of drawers opening and closing. Sarah ascended the staircase, her hand trailing along the polished banister. "Nana, is everything okay?" she asked, approaching the partially open bedroom door. Suddenly, it slammed shut with a force that made the hallway mirror rattle. Before Sarah could react, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The caller ID displayed her grandmother's number. Confusion etched across her face as she answered. "Sarah, dear," Margaret's voice crackled through the speaker. "Don't come over today. I'm heading to the senior center." Sarah's blood ran cold. She mumbled a quick goodbye and ended the call, her mind racing. With practiced calm, she called out, "Nana, I'll be downstairs," while her trembling fingers dialed 911. The kitchen, usually a place of warmth and comfort, now felt alien as Sarah gripped a knife from the butcher block. Minutes stretched like hours as she waited, every creak from above sending shivers down her spine. Suddenly, the house erupted with activity. Police officers stormed up the stairs, their heavy footfalls echoing through the house. A deafening gunshot pierced the air, followed by a flurry of shouted commands. As paramedics wheeled out the intruder, Sarah's jaw dropped in recognition. It was Mr. Carlson, her grandmother's next-door neighbor. The kindly man, who often helped Margaret with her garden, was now revealed as an opportunistic thief. Caught red-handed with Margaret's jewelry, and armed with a knife. The weight of Sarah's near miss hit her as she watched the police car drive away. Had she entered that bedroom, her fate would have been sealed. The sanctuary of her grandmother's home, once a place of cherished memories, now stood as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind the most familiar facades. On a crisp autumn evening, Jack and Emily Thornton returned from their anniversary dinner, the scent of fine wine still lingering on their breath. As they approached their Victorian-style home, nestled in a quiet suburban neighborhood, an unsettling sight stopped them in their tracks. The front door stood ajar, a dark void beyond the threshold. Jack's pulse quickened as he instructed Emily to wait by the car. With cautious steps, he entered the house, making a beeline for the master bedroom, where he kept his prized shotgun. Weapon in hand, Jack methodically searched each room. The attic's musty air revealed nothing amiss. The living room's antique furniture stood undisturbed. Even the basement, with its maze of shadowy corners, yielded no intruder. Puzzled, Jack called the authorities. Officers arrived promptly, their flashlights piercing the darkness as they conducted their own thorough search. Finding no evidence of forced entry or theft, they gently suggested the couple might have forgotten to lock up before leaving. As the police departed, Emily's nerves frayed. Tears streamed down her face as she expressed her fear of staying in the house. Jack did his best to comfort her, reasoning that any intruder must have fled long ago. Hours passed, and an uneasy silence blanketed the house. Jack tossed and turned, sleep evading him until exhaustion finally took hold. His respite was short-lived. Emily's blood-curdling scream shattered the night. Jack's eyes snapped open to find his wife frozen in terror, her gaze fixed on their bedroom closet. In that heart-stopping moment, Jack realized his grave oversight. He had neglected to check the second closet. Time seemed to slow as the closet door creaked open, revealing a pair of wild eyes peering out from the darkness. In a flash, Jack had the shotgun in his hands, the sound of the pump action echoing through the room. "Come out now," Jack bellowed, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The closet door swung wide, and instead of surrender, the intruder bolted for the stairs. Jack hesitated, his finger hovering over the trigger as the shadowy figure disappeared into the night. In the aftermath, as police sirens wailed in the distance, Jack and Emily clung to each other, shaken but alive. The intruder was never apprehended, his identity forever a mystery. But in the years that followed, Jack would often wonder if it was the sound of that shotgun that had saved them from a far grimmer fate. In the quiet suburbs of Oakwood, 32-year-old Ethan Blackwood found himself grappling with unsettling occurrences in his childhood home. Having recently lost his job, Ethan had reluctantly moved back in with his parents, occupying his old bedroom on the second floor of their Victorian-style house. One chilly autumn night, as Ethan lay awake, the silence was shattered by an ominous creak. His eyes darted to the source, the antique mahogany closet door slowly swinging open of its own accord. Despite his age, Ethan felt a childlike fear grip him as he cautiously approached the closet, half expecting to find an intruder lurking within its shadows. Finding nothing, he firmly shut the door and retreated to his bed, his heart still racing. Later that same night, a new disturbance arose. A series of rattling noises emanated from above, seeming to originate from within the house's ancient ductwork. The sounds were unlike anything Ethan had ever heard, a disconcerting mixture of scraping metal and muffled thuds. By morning, the noises had ceased, leaving Ethan to question his sanity. Over breakfast, Ethan attempted to share his concerns with his father, Robert. However, Robert's dismissive attitude only added to Ethan's frustration and growing sense of isolation. The following night brought a repeat performance. Once again, the closet door creaked open, this time filling Ethan with a sense of dread he couldn't shake. He meticulously examined the door's mechanism, convincing himself it must be faulty, though deep down he knew this explanation was inadequate. As if on cue, the ceiling noises resumed, their eerie rhythm matching the previous night's disturbance. Ethan lay frozen in his bed, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, straining to make sense of the sounds. The next morning, Ethan finally persuaded Robert to inspect the closet door. To Ethan's dismay, his father found nothing amiss, further cementing the notion that Ethan was either imagining things or deliberately seeking attention. Determined to uncover the truth, Ethan decided to maintain a vigilant watch that night. As expected, the closet door swung open, but this time, Ethan steeled himself for what might follow. The usual ceiling noises, however, did not materialize. The silence that followed was somehow more unnerving than the rattling had been. Unable to bear the suspense any longer, Ethan switched on his bedside lamp. His gaze was drawn inexorably to the air vent above his bed. What he saw there caused him to let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the house. Peering through the slats of the vent were two wide, unblinking eyes, their gaze fixed directly on Ethan. The eyes seemed to glow with an otherworldly light, filled with a mixture of malevolence and curiosity. Ethan's parents burst into the room, alarmed by his screams. As Ethan frantically tried to explain what he had seen, pointing at the now empty vent, he was met with looks of concern and disbelief. His parents exchanged worried glances, clearly doubting their son's mental state. Despite their attempts to rationalize the events as dreams or hallucinations brought on by stress and lack of sleep, Ethan remained convinced of what he had experienced. The memory of those eyes staring down at him from the vent would haunt him for years to come. A chilling reminder that sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are the ones we can't explain away. In the serene Adirondack Mountains, nestled among towering pines and pristine wilderness, lies the quaint lakeside community of Pinehaven. Here, 35-year-old Marcus Holloway and his wife, Sarah, had found their slice of paradise, a cozy cabin with private access to tranquil Lake Whisper. For years, the couple relished their weekends by the water, basking in the sun and enjoying the crystal-clear waters. The lake had always been a source of joy and relaxation, until one fateful evening changed everything. It was a balmy Saturday in late August. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Sarah decided to head back to the cabin, leaving Marcus to soak in the last rays of sunshine. The peaceful atmosphere was suddenly shattered when Marcus noticed an unusual disturbance in the water. A dark, amorphous shape moved beneath the surface, its presence alien and unsettling. Marcus's instincts screamed danger, prompting him to hastily pack up and retreat to the safety of their home. That night, sleep eluded Marcus. The image of the strange entity in the lake haunted his thoughts. Unable to shake his unease, he made a decision that would forever alter his perception of reality. Armed with only a flashlight and his wavering courage, Marcus ventured back to the lake under the cover of darkness. The night was unnaturally still, the usual chorus of crickets and frogs conspicuously absent. As Marcus swept his flashlight across the glassy surface of Lake Whisper, a sound shattered the silence, a massive splash, as if something large had emerged from the depths. His heart pounding, Marcus frantically searched for the source of the disturbance. What he saw next defied all logic and reason. There, standing knee-deep in the inky black water, was a figure that could only be described as otherworldly. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but wrong in ways Marcus couldn't articulate. Long matted black hair obscured its face entirely, hanging in wet ropes down its body. The creature stood motionless, facing Marcus but not quite looking at him. It was as if it existed in a space between realities, aware of his presence, but not fully in his world. Panic gripped Marcus. He dropped his flashlight and ran, not daring to look back until he was safely inside his cabin, door locked and curtains drawn. Now, as Marcus recounts his chilling encounter, he can't help but glance nervously at the windows. Lake Whisper, once a source of joy, has become a wellspring of terror. The knowledge that something inhuman lurks in its depths, merely a quarter mile from his home, has shattered his sense of security. Every rustle of leaves, every unexplained sound in the night, makes Marcus wonder, is the creature from the lake watching him even now? The Adirondack paradise he once knew has been forever tainted by the horror that emerged from Lake Whisper.
Thanks for joining us in the shadows tonight. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories every week. Have you got a story of your own? Share it in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And remember, the darkness holds many secrets. Are you brave enough to uncover them? Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked. Sweet nightmares.